evening, everyone. So let's start with the first question. So take a look. What are the instruments and methods for promoting national interest? 10 mark. All of you know that we have a topic in paper 2, section A, in which we talk about some key concepts of international relations, international politics. This is that kind of question that everyone knows something about it, about national interest. But how can you mold your answer in 10 marker? Means 150 words. That is the issue. Just look at the directive. Question directive is what? So how you're going to start? First, when it comes to introduction, so introduction should set the context of question. So it means your introduction should have two components. Number one, what is national interest? Number two, what is this instrument and method has to do with promoting national interest? Okay, so take a look on the introduction here. National interest is one of the ingredients of international relations, which often acquires a central focus of inquiry since each nation's international arena is based on it. All of you know that whenever we talk about promoting national interest, we cannot forget Morgenthau, because views given by Morgenthau shaped the views of USA's foreign policy and also about the world, because Morgenthau belonged to a realist school of thought, right? So what Morgenthau was saying, in Morgenthau's opinion, the minimum requirement of nation states is to protect their physical, political, and cultural identity against encroachment of other nations. Okay, so what this answer is doing, this answer is presenting a basic view about national interest, ki hai kya, and then supplementing it with the views of a scholar. Okay, Palmer and Perkins explained following instruments and methods for promoting national interest. And then it started with diplomacy. Just take a look over this answer, and then I'm going to do operation of this answer. Okay. It consists of techniques and procedures employed to reconcile different interests of states through mutual give and take. Then we have propaganda. We can, push our national interest through propaganda, as said by Laswell. It is a manipulation of symbols to control controversial attitudes. Very well used. Education is manipulation of symbols to control controversial attitudes. Alliances, it lies in the translation of common or complementary interests into common politics. The point is, just take a look at the structure of the answer. So introduction is present, context is set, and in body, answer is also telling about what are the instruments and methods. Okay, and in the end, we have a conclusion in that we are using Professor Ronald criticized the idea of national interest on the ground that it often denies individual interest, and hence the need is to acknowledge broader interest of international society while shaping momentum of national interest. So ऐसा ही हमें introduction यहाँ पे use करना होता है. Just take a look on the language. Economic methods deliberately followed by states in pursuit of fulfilling national interests both in peace and war. Psychological and political warfare. It is the use of propaganda with other measures like military, economic, or political so as to supplement it. Imperialism, colonialism as used by European countries since 16th century till middle 20th century. Now, the point is, so first of all, how students gather information and understanding to handle these kind of questions. One source is their notes. So if you take a look on the notes which are generally in the market जो circulate होते हैं, तो आप देखेंगे कि at most what is given in the national interest heading is Morgenthau's views and some criticism of Morgenthau's views. This is the base of notes which are present on national interest. But this question is saying what are the instruments and methods for promoting national interest? And many students, what they do, they search, and when they search, they will find an essay, and that essay is having a subheading methods/instruments for promoting national interest, और उसके नीचे आपको ये headings मिल जाएंगे. ठीक है? That is one one essay, and that essay is written by whom? That essay is written by a student who who was doing PhD in international relations, and he has this assignment, and that's how he did his assignment. But the point is, just take a look here. The word is "and" means in this answer we are generalizing instruments and methods, that like instruments and methods are same. अगर इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स और मेथड सेम होते और उसी के अंदर ये सब कुछ आता, तो फिर यूपीएससी या तो ये बोल देती कि व्हाट आर द इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स फॉर प्रमोटिंग नेशनल इंटरेस्ट और व्हाट आर द मेथड्स फॉर प्रमोटिंग नेशनल इंटरेस्ट, और या फिर यहाँ पर स्लैश लगा देती बीच में, मींस बोथ आर सेम. अगर एंड लगा है, whenever question is saying end, so you should take a step back and look. अगर ये end लगा है, so is there some difference in instruments and methods, and how can you distinguish this difference within your answer? So how you are going to do so? यहाँ तक आप क्या कर सकते हैं? This is quite fine. Okay, you can use Morganti here, you can use V.V. Dike here, you can use any statement to define national interest. Like you can use this statement: national interest is that which states seek to protect or achieve in relation to each other. It means desires on the part of sovereign state. The meaning of national interest to survival, ये statement already answer में use है. In place of this, you can also use national interest means the values, desires, interests which states seek to protect, to achieve in relation to each other, desires on the part of sovereign state. So, कोई भी एक statement, किसी भी तरह का formulation आप use कर सकते हैं. That's not an issue. जैसे आप यहाँ पर आएंगे, so you can use this same statement. Palmer and Perkins explain the following instruments and methods, or you can also use key for promoting national interest, following instruments and methods can be used. So when you use diplomacy, so you can say that diplomacy is an instrument, and within this instrument we have different methods. So instrument is a broad idea. Okay, we have this instrument, and within this instrument we are having different methods. For example, can you tell me some methods which are used in diplomacy to promote India's national interest? Anyone? जो भी आपके दिमाग में. So all of you know that, but the point is if you are using it here or not. Okay, so the point is you need to bring contemporary approach in your answer by saying that diplomacy is one instrument, and within this instrument we use different methods like track 1 diplomacy, track 2 diplomacy, right? As of now, last year we also used vaccine diplomacy. So diplomacy के भी methods हैं, और उनमें से कौन सा method कहाँ चलेगा, that is this intricacy कि हम कौन सा method कहाँ use करेंगे. For example, we were not using vaccine diplomacy in case of Pakistan. Pakistan was already in tie-up with China, and all of you must have read that news that with Pakistan has, with China's help, has launched PakVac, their own vaccine, right? So Pakistan, we have to promote our national interest with respect to Pakistan also. For that, we use back channels. Yes, Swapnil, we use back channels. So back channels are always there. Okay. So you can quote Happy Mon Jacob here. So Professor Happy Mon Jacob, उनके articles आते रहते हैं The Hindu में. So he says that every tool, every method of diplomacy cannot be used everywhere. It depends on the particular situation and kind of national interest we want to serve at that point. So in this context, you can say, for example, back channel diplomacy in case of Pakistan and vaccine diplomacy in case with respect to many South Asian nations. So this is how you should mold. Diplomacy is a broad instrument, and within this broad instrument, we have choices with respect to different methods. Okay. Coming to the next point. Propaganda. So propaganda is a broad instrument, and within this we have different methods. So you can use Laswell, yes, It is manipulation of symbols to control controversial attitudes. Now, when it comes to propaganda, now tell me that USA has been quite successful all across the world in promoting their national interest. So don't you think they use propaganda as an instrument also? Yes, they use propaganda as an instrument. So how they utilize that? Just look at this very fact that USA has propagated that USA's value system. Yes, narratives. For example, narratives with respect to LEIO as the only solution for the progress, peace, and prosperity of the world. LIEO, Liberal International Economic Order. So liberal international economic order is the only way to go forward. So these ideas are built. USA dedicatedly fund certain researchers, these scholars, and they publish their books, and then USA makes sure that their ideas are propagated all over the world as the pinnacle for international politics. So they do that. They set narrative based on their own value system, right? So they propagate this. What are the other ways? So one is they conduct researches and they establish that the researches are the only way forward. You were going to give example of liberal international economic order. Then another point is that whenever we talk about the actions, for example, USA's action in Iraq, USA's action in Afghanistan. So no matter all the world, all the countries, most of the countries of the world are saying that USA's adventure in Iraq were failure. USA's action in Libya was a failure. Look what is happening in Libya. Look what is happening in Iraq. They wanted to establish democracy and they have not, left this country, basic necessary stability also. Right? So democracy could not be established, and look what is happening there. Many outfits fighting for their, own role, kind of civil war there. So what USA do? USA tactically manage the media around the world. So that is part of propaganda. One is they conduct their researches and publish these researches and propagate these researches as the solutions for the peace, prosperity of the world. And they control the media. And that is by controlling this media, they set the narrative across the world towards their actions. So this is how they promote their national interest. Because if they don't do these propaganda, what is going to happen? USA's stature in the world is going to decrease, and USA's every action is going to be questioned by world community. And you all of you know that whenever your actions are being questioned, your every action has been questioned, it means your value is decreasing. That means you won't be having enough avenues to promote your national interest. So you should connect with these current aspects also in the minimum word possible. Just give examples, hints. Okay. So those were the methods. Our broad instrument is propaganda. Now let's come to alliances. So all of you know that alliance is a instrument. Like I gave you example what the US Secretary of State, US Defense Secretary was saying last week, that we have alliances across the world, but China is not having any alliance. So all of you know that alliance is a way. But what within alliance? What methods are used within alliance to serve our national interest? So all of you must be aware of this, that we have another instrument under the heading economic methods. Okay, so we are going to use some these methods which you are telling here now, we are going to use under that instrument. So your views should not overlap. So what you are going to put in alliances? Alliances for mutual defense. Yes, Leo. So alliance is an instrument, and within this we have different methods. Means we establish different kind of alliances. For example, we establish alliance for mutual security. We establish alliance on the basis of mutual economic cooperation. We establish alliance on the basis of technological cooperation, right? Yes, for security cooperation, for example, Quad, right? So these are alliance. You're going to give example, and Quad is an example. Within methods, you should say defense and security based alliance, technology sharing based alliance, economic cooperation based economic cooperation means trade based alliance. So these are the methods, and it is said now, if you have seat on the higher tables of the world, then your status naturally increases and you get added advantage or leverages from in other areas. अगर आपको एक अच्छे रीजनल ग्रुपिंग में एक अलायंस बनके एक आपको सीट मिल जाती है, तो यू गेट अदर एवेन्यूज आल्सो. When you engage with other nations, they give you some preferable treatment because you are with them in different alliance. So this way you serve your national interest. Psychological and political warfare, I would suggest that you can, within this, that this is a broad instrument, and within this broad instrument you are going to use hard power. Okay, for example, military, economic, these are some methods which are used in psychological and political warfare. We conduct our military exercises. Why we can, for example, if you have gone through last day's newspaper, so we saw a comment by USSR, and comment was what is happening in Ukraine. In Ukraine, USA and Ukraine are having a military exercise. So they're having military exercise. So don't you think that is also a psychological and political warfare? They're not on actual war. But what USA is showing, Ukraine is just near your border and we are having military exercise there. It means in the event of actual war, we are going to have added advantage, being already having logistics and tactical, know-how of your area. So this is how psychological and political warfare is done. And you give that leverage in national interest. Then within economic methods, so within economic methods, although you should write economic instruments. So economic, just say economic, because instrument you have already written above. So within this, they have different methods. For example, one is granting aid. Another is cheap credit line, or you can say line of credit. Another is sanctions. Yes. Another is tariff and non-tariff barriers. Okay, so tariff barriers are there, non-tariff barriers are there. So the sanction put hyphen and put this. So, and other is preferential treatment in certain lists or certain certain trade aspects. So you can just put it along this line. Grant is one method. Grants is one method. Like we give grants to Bhutan. Line of credit is another method. Like we gave to Vietnam. Okay. Investing, yes, investment is another method. Like we did in, say, Afghanistan. Like we are doing in Nepal. So when we are investing in Nepal's hydropower project, so we are saying, okay, you are going to get jobs, you are going to get assured electricity, but we are also going to have some advantage from this. We are also going to earn something from this. So that is investment. So granting aid, investment, line of credit, these are methods under this instrument. What is the instrument? That is economic. So imperialism and colonialism was once used. Okay, it is not used and as of now. So you can simply say European countries use that. Okay, and in the end you can put this statement. This statement is apt and justified in this particular context. Okay. Coming to the next question, what are the benefits of multipolar world order? ये भी जेनरिक क्वेश्चन लगता है, जैसे नेशनल इंटरेस्ट जेनरिक क्वेश्चन था ना. कई बार ऐसा होता है कि जो क्वेश्चंस आपको बहुत इजी लगते हैं, तो क्वेश्चंस व्हिच यू थिंक दे आर क्वाइट इजी, दीज आर केक वॉक, तो उसको हम लाइटली लेते हैं in terms of understanding that context of that answer. We just jump into whatever content we have, we just pour into that. कई बार knowledge भी जो है अगर स्ट्रक्चर ना की जाए और को थोड़ा सा पेशेंस से यूज ना किया जाए, तो वो कई बार नुकसान कर जाती है, राइट? एंड यहाँ पे एक मार्क्स पे डिफरेंस आ जाता है रैंकिंग में, so we cannot take it lightly. So what are the benefits of multipolar world order? Again, just check the question directly. What, right? What? बताना है benefits के बारे में of multipolar world order. 10 marks question, right? How should you start this particular answer? First of all, you have a pen and paper in front of you. Just list down those points which you know about, benefits of multipolar world. आपको क्या लगता है क्या benefits हैं? And how you are going to use this. Keeping in mind, we need to have structure, brevity in our language, analysis and depth. It means use of some scholars, some perspectives, and then presentation. These are the 4 pillars which you should keep in mind. So first of all, you need to start this with introduction and a brief idea that yes, there are benefits of multipolar world order. Okay. Then we are going to expand what are those benefits. And whenever you use a particular, answer of multipolar world order, so when you set the context, so context should be connected with how we are, how we moved towards multipolar world order. It means from bipolar to multipolar. Okay. Before I start, I'm not still convinced that you people got the context of this answer. Tell me, what is the meaning of order here? What is order here? You know the content, but what is the meaning of order here? Multipolar world order, but what is the meaning of order? Come on, what is the meaning of order in international politics? So if you give due importance to the each word given in question, so how it is going to help? It is going to give you, depth in your answer. It is going to eventually help you in depth of your answer. You know the points, but how you are using those points is going to shift for sure. आपको पता है points क्या हैं, लेकिन अगर आपको एक एक वर्ड का गहराई से मतलब पता है, the deeper context, तो होगा क्या, आप खुद ही देखेंगे कि डिफरेंस आएगा कि आप उन्हीं शब्द का, उन्हीं वर्ड्स का you are going to use in a better manner. Whenever we use the word order in international politics, basic idea is every element of this system is placed exactly on the location it deserves. And the interaction between these elements are based on a rule, as each element is having respect towards enforcement of these rules. So when we say order, it means when it comes to international politics, so we have different nations. तभी तो हम उसको कहते हैं international, means we have different nations. International means between these nations, and when we are saying order, so each nation is placed in a perfect manner. And when I say perfect manner, the place they deserve, and how they're interacting as per rule, because there is a sense of respect towards enforcement of these rules. It means interaction between these nations in international politics is based on a predetermined framework which we call order. Okay, so this is the broad definition of this word order. Now, whatever benefit we are going to use, so we are going to connect with how it is serving or how it is, inclining this world towards order. Okay, so जैसे लियो ने कहा power distribution. So it is not necessary that if you are having power distribution, then it can bring you order. No, there can be an unjustified way of power distribution. There can be a possibility that one nation or few nations grabbing into the power of other nations and saying, yes, we are going to run this world, and that is not order. Okay. Now, multipolar world is one where power is divided among several states. And when we say multipolar, यानी कि several states में हमने power को divide करा है, rather than being dominated by one or two states, rather than being dominated. Okay, from bipolar world to Pax American. अब हो क्या रहा है? देखिए, this question is of 10 marks, so it means you have 150 words. If same question is asked in 15 marker, then your answer will shift. If it is asked in 20 marker, then your answer is going to shift further. How? If it is asked in 15 marker, then you are going to give more words to explain the idea of multipolar world order, and you are going to give focus on this word order. Okay, because there are some set of scholars who say that whenever we use the word bipolar world order, so there was no order. So actually in international politics, there is no order per se. We only strive to bring order, either by bipolar or by multipolar. Okay, but here you have few words, 150 words, so you need not to elaborate on that part. Now I told you, after you explain a bit, means define part in your introduction, just expand on the transition from bipolar world to Pax Americana, which further witnessed the emergence of China, India, Japan, Brazil, etc. World today is conceived as multiplex and multi-civilizational. It has following benefits. So this is used in a apt manner, but this can be further improved if you use some scholarly point of view here. Okay, you can use Barry Buzan's views. He says that increasing diffusion of power as a rise of the rest, leading towards an international system in which there will be no superpowers, several great powers, and a lot of regional powers. Don't you think this line itself tells us about multipolar world order? When I say no superpower, it means there is no nation here who can say that these combined opponents cannot defeat me even if I am standing alone, because that is the definition of superpower. But according to Barry Buzan, there is no such nation as of now. World has changed. Okay, so don't you think if you use this Barry Buzan's views in terms of evolution, we were going from bipolar to Pax Americana, means when we saw the disintegration of USSR, it was like that world has become unipolar. And finally, we saw rise of rest. Okay, coming to the benefits, interconnected development. Since power is distributed at global level, it opens up foreign policy, security choices for all. For example, this Ukraine exercise, right? Now, don't you think when we talk about benefit and use the word interconnected development, we can do more justice with what we write here? Because you're using the word development and then you are using equivalent exercise, which is connected to security. So you're using development, but we are talking about security choices and foreign policies. Don't you think thoda sa hodgepodge ho gaya? Even if presentation is nice, but with good presentation, you cannot, think कि evaluator will think, okay, introduction अच्छा हो गया, ये अच्छा हो गया, if अगर यहाँ पर कुछ diffusion हमने कर दिया तो काम चल जाएगा. ऐसे काम नहीं चलेगा. Another point is interconnected development. What points you have in mind? So whenever we are saying about interconnected development, so you can say that progress of one nation is shared with other nations in a better way, because now this world order is connected through a complex network of capillaries in which information, in which tie-ups, in which technology, everything is moving on a faster rate, right? So multipolar world order itself says that, because now we are not bipolar. Earlier, what was happening in bipolar world order, whenever you are needing technology, when you are in need of capital, whenever you are needing some security engagements, you were having only two choices. Either you should look towards USA or look towards USSR. But don't you think in multipolar world order, the world is connected in a different manner, and then now we are having many options, and we have multiple engagements, and when I say multiple engagements means simultaneously there are multiple interests working. For example, India and Israel cooperate on a lot of avenues, and when it comes to India's stand, we have outreach towards Palestine also, we have outreach towards Israel also. Why? Because we are living in a multipolar world order. And we have diverse engagement. Agar hame desalination technology leni hai Israel se, we can take that. Israel and Iran are locking horns, but we have tie-ups with Iran also, right? And multiple alliances may multiple interests simultaneously working. That is the beauty of multipolar world order. Yes, you can say that. Complex interdependence. But complex interdependence theory is generally used as a way to say, due to this complex interdependence, you are able to diffuse tensions in an easier manner. Now you should connect complex interdependence with development. Simple point is that. Way to align. It comes with opportunities for weaker states to exercise their strategic autonomy and multi-align themselves with multiple powerful states. Example, United Nation Organization. Yes. So yes, you can use this point, but you can use a better subhead. In place of way to align, you can use multiple avenues of alignment. So multiple avenues of alignment are there, and that is why you can just expand on that. Augmentation for possible competition, for expansion of their influence when powerful states face possible competition. The multipolar world order holds responsibility of check and balance. An example, claim for South China Sea by China. The scope for bargaining, it is enlarged in global discourse for resetting international norms, reconfiguring international institutions, Paris Climate Change Agreement. Okay. So you have used this, but don't you think the crucial point, which is considered the main benefit of multipolar world order, that is more chances of peace. This should also be used. And whenever, I should read the next line, then I should say that in the last, you should also mention a counter argument. Okay. Yes. Counter argument should be there. It is enlarged in global discourse for resettling international norms and reconfiguring international institutions, example, Paris Climate Change Agreement. However, this transition is not in order. It may result powerful states to manipulate global norms. For example, USA step back with Paris deal. Okay. Thus, multipolarity depends on relative power potential, geostrategic location, demography, people, resources, as well as the quality of leadership, which signifies that multipolarity is what states make of it. Now, about what should be used when it comes to counter argument. One counter argument is that it is said that multipolar world order is like multiple triggers, multiple hands on triggers. It means if there is a bipolar world order, if there is a unipolar world order, it gives more sense of security, because now at least we have, okay, this is the main power. If something goes off, then this power can take care of that. But if we have multiple powers, then they can influence the international politics in multiple ways. Yes, more fingers on trigger, right? So this should be used in the end before conclusion, so that your answer is having a wholesome, view. But the stability theory should be, incorporated in here, right? Coming to the next question, explain in brief the rise and fall of Cold War? 10 marks, again 10 marks. So before this question, we were using what questions, means question directive was what, but here question directive is explained, right? It means we need to elaborate on the dimensions of this answer. When I say dimension, since it is saying brief rise and fall of Cold War, it means we need to talk about phases of Cold War. This question is directly from your subtopic, right? Now, how should you set the introduction? It means introductions should be starting with what was the background of Cold War, because it is saying a brief rise of Cold War. So you are going to give rise of Cold War when you talk a bit about the reason of Cold War. So when you talk about the reason of Cold War, then you talk about the start of Cold War, then you talk about the different phases of Cold War, and then you talk about the final junction, where when we saw disintegration of USSR. Okay, then you're going to quote some scholars who say that Cold War was never cold, there was, warm was there. Then we have some scholars who say that Cold War never ended, we are still living in the era of Cold War. So that is how you need to balance your answer. Okay, when I say phases, so in phases, you should keep in mind that this is not a world history question. Okay, this is a PSIR question. So that is why when you talk about phases, you should talk about various doctrines. You should talk about various perspectives which were leading in that particular phase. Okay, not just events. Many times what happens, what they have read in world history, they just put in this answer. Look at the question paper. Question is of PSIR Optional. Okay. Now, so since the end of World War II, when USA attacked with nuclear bomb till 1991, when USSR disintegrated, denoting high state of rivalry and distrust, Cold War took place between USA and USSR. So when I say brevity, so brevity का उत्तम प्रदर्शन करने की कोशिश की गई है यहाँ पर, right? Now, however, according to Kenneth Waltz, it wasn't entirely cold, but warm as well. It remained Cold War due to nuclear weapons. Means nuclear weapons was giving us MAD, mutually assured destruction. So actually, this Cold War was cold because of nuclear weapons. पता था कि अगर इसने यूज किया तो दूसरा भी यूज कर देगा. The war rose with USA's thought of establishing hegemony. It can be divided in three phases. Now, I told you that there should be two elements in your introduction. One is the background, why that Cold War happened, what is Cold War. So why that happened is explained here. The war rose with the USA's thought of establishing hegemony. But I would suggest that if you use this line a bit before, then it will be a better context to your introduction. Okay, वो clarity होगी कि अच्छा वो बिल्कुल flow उसी तरीके से जा रहा है कि how, why it was happened, then this. Coming to the first phase, 1947 to 1962. This was the first phase. In response to USSR becoming military state, USA initiated its containment policy. The phase witnessed Truman Doctrine and Marshall Plan against communist and Comintern and Molotov Plan by USSR in its response. So this is what was happening there. When USSR became a military state, USA wanted to contain that because both of the nations were of counter viewpoints about the reality. One was capitalist, another was communist, and communists were, the communist idea itself says that at one point there will be a spontaneous revolution. And through this violent revolution, we are going to finish capitalism. So at this point, when communism was successful and it was becoming military state and power was expanding, so USA was of the view that their end point of their ideology is removal of capitalism. So one day or other, USA is going, USSR is going to come to hold our necks. तो हमारा गर्दन पकड़ने आना ही है उनको, तो क्यों ना पहले ही इलाज कर दिया जाए. So from where they are going to expand? From Europe. So let's establish our influence in Europe through Truman Doctrine, Marshall Plan, by giving huge amount of aids for reconstruction and development of Europe, and bring hegemony in international economic system, so that not only these countries which are coming between USSR and USA, I'm talking about Europe, other countries also became dependent in one way or other on USA. That is from USA's side, okay? But if we talk about USSR's perspective was that USSR was never of the opinion to expand and finish capitalist states. And it was very much evident from some of the policy decisions which were taken by Mr. Stalin. But it is said that even after some limiting expansion of influence-based actions taken by Stalin, Stalin could not gain the confidence of USA and its allies. And that is when Stalin decided कि कुछ नहीं होना जाना, ultimately they are not going to trust us, considering the core ideology of communism, then the only way forward is that we also increase our influence, okay? Further, bipolarity established by Berlin blockade, Warsaw Plan, and formation of NATO. Very well used. Second phase, 1962 to 1979, detente phase. When we say detente, it means that there's a peace between two major wars or two conflicts. It came in context of Cuban Missile Crisis, and amid domestic challenges, West recognized Soviet control over Eastern Europe through human rights recognition. It witnessed treaties like NPT, SALT I, PTBT, etc. So this was the positive phase, means this was the phase when de-escalation was happening. Then we had this third phase, USSR invasion in Afghanistan, Iranian revolution favored USA, adopting dual policy in blowing out USSR economy. Challenged USSR military in Afghanistan, started nuclear arms race. It came to be known as New Cold War since ideological differences shifted towards geopolitics, because now they were fighting on different lands. They were fighting, proxy wars. The symbolic end of Cold War was marked by collapse of Berlin Wall in 1989. USSR disintegrated and third wave of democracy was marked. However, the manifestation of Cold War from Middle East to Afghanistan, its legacy still continues. This line, this phrase is used in a very apt manner. So brevity is there, structure is there, context is clear, and content is also fine. That is what you need to do in 150 words, because only 10 marker is there. Now, next question. Discuss the functional and system approach to study international relations. Again, a 10 marker. So take a look on the question directive, which is discuss the functional and system approach to study international relations. So it is very much clear that in the body part, we have to use two subheadings, majorly system approach and functional approach, and we need to expand on that. Since the word is discuss, so we need to use scholars, we need to use some ideas, we need to use its application. So all the three components should be included in both the subheadings. Why we need approaches in international relations? We are going to talk about the difference between functional and system approach at a later stage. First point is why we need approaches to study international relations. What is the meaning of having an approach to study international relations? This is going to be the context of this question. When you give this answer in the introduction, then this is going to set the context of this particular question. Why we need approaches to international relations? Emergence of various approaches, utility of functional and system application of IR, approaches of IR. Okay. In international relations theory, different approaches attempt to provide conceptual framework upon which relations among nations are analyzed. This is exactly what is needed in this answer when it comes to introduction. Clearly बता रहा है कि ये इसलिए चाहिए आपका approach. We need different approaches because it is an attempt to provide a conceptual framework upon which relations among nations can be analyzed. This is the structure, and on this basis, we can analyze the international relations between different nations. So this is the answer of why actually we need approaches in international relations. Okay. Next, among positivists and post-positivist theories, other conflicting approaches like functional system approach emerged. So these are the broad subheadings of when it comes to approaches in international relations, and within them, we saw the emergence of functional and system approach. So when it comes to functional approach, you're using one subhead within a box, principally arose from the experience of European integration. We are talking about how Europe was integrating. Functional approach is an argument that explains phenomena as functions of a system rather than actors. And this is the key highlight explaining what is actually functional approach. It means whenever you analyze international relations, just compare on the functions, not the actors. Actors are some nations, some bodies who are influencing. And when I say function is what they are doing. So who is doing? Say zyada important hai what they are doing. When we say what they are doing, it means we are talking about functions, not actors. Employed by Wallstein's Westphalian world order, it focuses on common interest shared by states. So the analysis is based on what are the common interests which are shared by states. It involves steps of compartmentalization of issues. It means these kind of issues are of one nature. Let's make a compartment of these. These particular issues are of one nature. Then we have segregation. We segregate the issues. Let me give an example. If you want to analyze relations between South Asia, nations in South Asia, okay, and you want to use functional approach. First of all, don't you think nature of relations between South Asian nations is totally different from nature of relations in European nations? How many of you agree to this point? There's a difference in the nature, right? So this is known as piece by pieces. So यहाँ पे आना है pieces. Pieces मतलब टुकड़े वाला pieces. PIECES. Okay. Now, so when I was giving example of South Asian European nations, the purpose was when you use functional approach. So when you are not having any approach of international relations, what you are going to say? You're going to say, okay, European nations have better relation among themselves than South Asian nations. That's not analysis. What is analysis? Analysis, you compartmentalize issues. For example, border issues related to water sharing across boundaries. Let's compartmentalize these issues. For example, if there's confusion on the border, on the boundary line between India and Bangladesh, let's put this here. About Tista water, let's put it here. So let's put this in one compartment. If one set of issues, we are functioning in a way, that doesn't mean that this kind of functioning is happening in other spheres also. It may be possible that India is having phenomenal functionality in terms of trade with Bangladesh. It may be possible that India is exporting a lot to Bangladesh and importing less, means we are having favorable trade relations when it comes to India's economy. So don't you think functionality is different when we analyze these relations by segregating things and then compartmentalizing them into one head? Don't you think this analysis is a better analysis? Ravi is asking compartmentalize. Ravi, compartmentalize means your analysis between relations is based on making a block, and within this block, you are putting one kind of issues. For example, I deliberately give example of, say, India and Bangladesh. For example, when you analyze, so you segregate issues. Like okay, let's segregate on the basis of conflict and and on the basis of cohesion. Means यहाँ पर बहुत अच्छा चल रहा है, यहाँ पर बहुत बेकार चल रहा है. एक तो ये segregation है. Now we are compartmentalizing in a different way. For example, अब इस conflict में से भी कुछ ऐसे हैं जो severe है. For example, say आपका water है. I also believe that that's not a severe category. This is going to eventually resolve, and significant efforts were done between during the time of Manmohan Singh ji and Narendra Modi ji also. But giving you examples so that you can relate to it. So water issue आपने ले लिया, boundary issue आपने लिया, तो you have made a compartment. ट्रेड की बात करें तो आपने एक ले लिया, इमिग्रेशन की बात करें तो आपने एक ले लिया, और जितने इससे रिलेटेड इश्यूज हैं आपने उसमें डाल दिए. फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ यू टॉक अबाउट वाटर, तो देयर कैन बी मल्टीपल इश्यू रिलेटेड टू वाटर. ओके, ट्रेड है तो ट्रेड में भी मल्टीपल इश्यूज हो सकते हैं रिलेटेड टू ट्रेड. ओके, सो वी हैव मेड कंपार्टमेंट एंड नाउ वी आर चेकिंग द functionality, how both powers or multiple powers. I'm giving you example of India and Bangladesh. There can be multiple powers. So we check the functionality with respect to different compartments, and we resolve issues in pieces. And we can say, okay, we are doing significantly better in trade. Yeah, look how well we are doing in trade. If we are doing well there and we are getting, due benefit on the both sides, let's, find a way to handle other compartments also. Okay. Considering Richard Cobden's views of keeping the politicians out, the approach has challenged being long-term process that needs political will. A famous idea given by Richard Cobden, he said, if you compartmentalize these issues, these can be better handled by those who are field experts, not politicians. For example, I gave example of, say, this water issue. Okay. And if Bangladesh is saying, okay, you need to change your water flow to this level, because in this particular time we have this issue of flood, or we are issue of drinking water. So Richard Cobden was saying, if you bring water scientists of both sides, dam managers of both sides, then they can come to a better conclusion than these politicians hitting their heads along, right? When you have some issue, and if you have scientific community of both sides engaging on the issue, they can bring better solution. But actually this question is of 10 marker. That is why you can limit only at this point. If this question is asked in, say, 20 marks, then we can put a point against this particular point. Because why Richard Cobden's views were not that much acceptable. The reason is legitimacy of engagement between scientists, between field experts, is less than politicians, because politicians are chosen by people, so they represent people, and we live in democracy. So if politicians who are representing us come to a conclusion, then we think, okay, this is our conclusion. But if some scientists go to Bangladesh and their scientists engage and they finalize something, then we are not agreeing to that. Scientists को हम जानते भी नहीं. Who is that? How his decision is going to impact the life of so many people in that area. Now, coming to the system approach, influenced by general system theory. System approach, first of all, what is general system theory? Can anyone tell me what is general system theory? Now देखिए हो क्या रहा है, मैं क्यों पूछता हूँ आपसे ये चीजें? Why I'm not just explaining. When I ask general system theory, so what people remember, okay, in our notes under this system theory, we saw this diagram of David Easton model, and किसी ने समझाया तो था that this input is going to have this, input is going to there, and then there will be some policy change, then there will be output that will come as feedback, and that is why you remember अच्छा input output general system theory. अरे general system theory अगर वो होती तो फिर David Easton का model क्यों होता? General system theory is a broad idea. David Easton's model is just a step in that, and one step cannot define the whole theory. Now Verma ji is saying world as a single system. पूरा world ही एक system है. कवि वाली बात हो गई है, तो कवि की भावनाओं को अब समझना है. We need to understand the views of poet. कह दिया है poet ने तो world is a single system. Coming to the point, when we say general system theory in political theory, in PSIR Optional, political science as a discipline, this whole idea is based on an effort of saying that or establishing that theory in political science are structured like we have systems in other disciplines. For example, when it comes to digestive system, when it comes to respiratory system, we say respiratory system. Okay, all of you know that we are in age of corona, right? And what system in our body is most vulnerable from corona? What system? Respiratory system. And why you say it is a respiratory system? Why you use the word system? Ravi say, we say it respiratory system because there are lungs. If I ask respiratory system, can lungs define the whole system? No, because there are many elements which work together, and their working together is what we call as respiratory system, because all of these elements working together helps us in respiration. That is why we call it as respiratory system. Lungs are not the respiratory system. Yes, multiple parts working together. We have a trachea, we have lungs, within lungs we have alveoli, right? We have nasal cavity. So all of these elements are necessary for working of the system. We call a solar system. Why we call solar system? Because there is a sun, there are planets, and all of these planets are revolving around the sun in a predefined path, right? So it means a system has certain elements, and these elements interact with one another in a predetermined way. Like respiratory system. Do we have anyone in this class whose respiratory system takes carbon dioxide and releases oxygen? क्या कोई ऐसा है यहाँ पे? Do we have anyone in the house? No, right? Because every element of respiratory system works in a predetermined path, right? So yes, predetermined path. Randomly नहीं होता. अर्थ एंड सन के बीच का रिलेशन, क्या अर्थ ऐसा होता है कि यार आज मन नहीं कर रहा, जरा घूमने घूमने का, थोड़ा सा लेट चलते हैं, लेट उठते हैं, कैसा होता है? No, there is no randomness, there is an organization. That is why we call it a system. We do not say that whole universe is a system, because we are still in the process to know, okay, how these elements interact in a predetermined path. So we try to bring coherence in our understanding of this universe. We don't call it the whole system. अगर कोई कह रहा है ना system, उसको हवा नहीं है कुछ. Because we are still in the process to understand the universe. How can you say that it's a system? When we know what are the elements, when we know how they interact in predetermined path, then we can say, okay, that's a system, right? So this is how this is how political science is trying to connect or establish itself. Like, yes, we are also a system, because there are different elements, and these elements interact with each other in a predetermined way. If this action is going to take place, then this action is going to take this effect. Okay. So this was the broad idea of this general system theory. Then we have system approach in international relations as one step in this direction. Okay. And we remember David Easton's model and work of Almond to be prominent work in this system approach. So its exponents like Morton Kaplan proposed grand theory of international relations. So what Morton Kaplan was trying to do, he was saying, that since international relations are also based on system, means if this particular action is going to bring this particular result, these are the elements of international system. So I am going to make a theory. This is going to be a grand theory of international system. So Morton Kaplan was saying, when other scholars are saying that international politics is anarchical, there is no order, there cannot be one theory, Morton Kaplan was saying, I'm going to build a theory and this is going to be called grand theory of international relations. Although these ideas of Morton Kaplan were outrightly rejected by many scholars, but thoda wo samman to dena chahiye, try to kiya tha Morton Kaplan, right? So let's understand how he was saying that that's a system. Through different models which are capable of explaining past, present, and future of international politics. देख रहे हैं क्या बड़ी बात कह रहे हैं? His model is going to tell past, present, and future of international politics. It comprises balance of power, bipolar, loose bipolar, very loose bipolar, universal actor, hierarchical system, detente system model, etc. So he was telling that I have gone through the history of international politics. I've analyzed what is happening in present, and on this basis, I am telling you certain concepts, and these concepts are going to tell you how this international system works. Okay, this is going to tell you how this future works. However, Stanley Hoffman criticizes it as a huge misstep for not capturing basic stuff in international politics. So you're going to quote stuff Stanley Hoffman, and he said it's a huge misstep. Thus doesn't hold analytics and explanation. Based on this, India's foreign policy is now transforming from passive to proactive state through system change in domestic politics and priorities. So this particular explanation is well in the line. Okay. Now, what many people do when they read system approach, तो अंदर से बड़ा मन करता है उनका, यार, we should put this David Easton's model, we should make that diagram. But tell me, this particular question is asking you systems approach of political theory or asking system approach to study international relations. System approach to study international relations. And that is why we need to give a hint about this system theory, David Easton contribution, and then we talk about specifically on Morton Kaplan.